1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, my name's Julielee Stitt. I'm a communications officer at the City of Kingston, podcast co-producer, and we're going to tell you more about Season 2! Yeah!
I'd like to recognize Kingston is on the traditional homeland and territory of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat, and thank you to these nations for their care and stewardship. A little about me, I'm originally from the BC Lower Mainland, and my ancestry is Irish-English. Welcome to Tell Me More, the City of Kingston podcast. I'm Rob Hosier, your host, and joining me as always is our intrepid producer, Paul Whittingham. Season 2, Paul.
Season 2.
We made it. Wow. We're here, and due to this amazing occasion of embarking on Season 2, we're going to do a little bit of a different format today, but don't fret. We'll be back to our regular programming in February. But today, we are keeping things short and sweet. Today, we want to talk to you about the season we have planned, and here to tell us more about that is our behind-the-scenes producer, Julielee Stitt. However, before that, we need to do something really important. Essential, in fact, Paul. So just, silence. Today, I want to start by thanking you, our listener. For some reason, you've tagged along, liked, subscribed, all that good stuff to this little old municipal podcast, and we couldn't be more grateful. Because by tuning in, liking, subscribing, and especially spreading the word of Tell Me More, you've given us the ability to push forward with a second season. Thank you. And if you're new to the show, we're not going to forget about you. Thanks to you, too. Better late than never to the party, but we're glad you're here all the same. Now, to the business at hand, I welcome to the mic Julielee, who never really left the room. We just kind of turned off her mic. So I think, Paul, now is the time to turn Julielee's mic on.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Rob.
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Coming in.
So Julielee, something that you're not going to expect is a little bit of a curveball, because on Tell Me More, which we're going to talk about some of the purposes of Tell Me More, one of the major purposes we have on the podcast is getting to know city employees and some of the people behind projects, behind things. It seems to me, Paul, this is a project, i.e. the podcast, and you are technically our guest, and so we're going to know a little bit about you. So how long have you been working at the City of Kingston as a communications officer?
Okay, I'm not sure how I feel about this curveball, but actually, Rob, if I may, I'm going to start with something before I answer that question. And I share this podcast widely, and I just have to say you have some fans in my family, big fans of your voice and your presentation style. I will show it to them saying, look at this city project, look at this excellently written script, and all they're focusing on is you and the guests you've had to date. So I just wanted to mention that
appreciate that.
Talking about me.
Before talking about you.
So thank you for asking. I've been at the City of Kingston now for 3 years.
3 years, and I believe we started the City of Kingston together at the exact same time, exact same day. Who do you support within the city?
Oh, that's a great question. So whenever I first joined the city, I was working with a number of departments, including Kingston Fire and Rescue, the airport, financial services, environmental services, which has since expanded to include the climate leadership division. But recently there was a little bit of this is probably way too much information, but anyways, now I'm working on more corporate projects. So right now I'm actually working with Paul on the annual report, and we're putting that together. I do a lot of newsletter writing. So it actually, my background is in journalism, so it takes me back to that writing and storytelling piece, which I really appreciate. So.
And it's such a key part of our department. Julielee has taken over so much of the copywriting and news releases and doing an amazing amount of journalism for the podcast. She is the heart and soul of our little operation here. So to have her behind the mic is a huge honor. And then probably I'm most nervous about this guest too, because...
But I have to say, if a news release goes out at the wrong time, I was totally not involved.
Exactly. Yes, you're off that day. So, getting back to the situation at hand here, what do we have on tap for season 2?
Oh, that's such a great question, and I think one thing that I want to touch on before we get into the season to come, recognizing that this is a shorter episode and a bit of a teaser, is that we launched a podcast last year. This is season 2, and we did it in the midst of a pandemic. And so you go in with the best of intentions, you have your editorial plan, and then you kind of roll with it. Yeah. So I think we have to keep that in mind when we're looking at season 2, that
We're not out of the woods yet.
We're not out of the woods yet. Exactly. We have a vision, but we're also we're willing to adapt, and we know that it very well might happen. But that said, some of the topics that we're looking at exploring is a little bit more into the climate change subject. So one of the priorities of the current council is to demonstrate leadership on climate action. And we have the Climate Leadership Division, which is looking at focused priorities, but then there's awesome work happening across the corporation. And we want to shine a bit of a spotlight on that and tell that story and provide people with the context that they need to better understand some of those initiatives so that when they find out about a new program, it's not coming from left field. They have that broad understanding.
Yeah, we had climate on the first season, so this will almost be like Climate Leadership Part 2, and
Yes.
get a bit of an update on that. And that's your portfolio as well, which is a huge one.
It's a biggie. It's a biggie, but it's a good one. And then, we've been back and forth on this too, and a couple of other things that we were looking at was transportation. So
Absolutely.
if we can get maybe someone from Kingston Transit on.
100%. Electric buses, huge changes, recruiting bus operators. They've got a lot going on right now, but also a lot of things that people don't know about Kingston Transit. I learned on a meeting the other day that to become a bus operator, they will do all your training. And so you don't need to have any sort of special, it's preferred that you have a large vehicle operating, but you don't necessarily have to. So you learn little things like that you may not know from the website or something like that.
Exactly. Those little nuggets. And also on the active transportation files. So in 2021, the city received an award, silver designation.
That's right.
For its safe bicycling. So, there's a lot happening on that front. And I think even as city staff work to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic, even as we respond to the orders and the changes, there's still all this other amazing work happening behind the scenes that we really want to tell residents about. And going back to my background and to something that you really appreciate is that storytelling piece.
Absolutely.
And introducing people to the folks who work at the city.
100%.
Because I think oftentimes it's the corporation, it's the city of Kingston, it's the structure, it's a faceless organization. But we work with some,
Did I tell you the reason and the impetus of my passion about that? And in meetings and things like that, personalizing city employees and highlighting the folks behind all these major initiatives are huge. I was in the barbershop my first 2 weeks here, and I'm not going to say what barbershop I was in, and I heard people talking about the city. The city isn't doing this, the city isn't doing that, the city is doing this, the city isn't doing that. And I thought to myself at this point, I got to my point in the chair, and they asked me what I did. I said, I work for the city. And so the whole tone changed when a face and a voice and a real person was behind that. And it was really interesting to see that change. And that's kind of the micro motivation behind the macro version of the podcast, is that we can highlight people and really become less the city and more Julielee Stitt or whoever we're discussing this with. One of the really exciting things is that we're going to perhaps try a series of podcasts.
Right.
Of episodes that's going to focus on the election. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I will. One thing I have to mention, totally understand how you don't want to identify the exact barbershop you went to, but they're doing a good job. You don't get to see, listeners, you don't get to see. Not since
the pandemic. Oh my gosh.
You don't get to see our host, but he has one of the most impressive beards. It goes perfectly with that voice of his. So whoever
Wait till they open up and they can actually get trimmed again. Oh my gosh.
But yes, we are looking at doing a series, and it's one that we have to put a little bit more thought into. But come October, we're going to be in a municipal election.
Absolutely.
So, we have in the communications and customer experience department, we talk a lot about public engagement. We talk about projects where we need resident input. But one of the most important ways that residents can get civically engaged is by going and casting your ballot on
Absolutely.
Election Day. So we're also going to be doing at least one episode on that.
Absolutely. And to be clear, we're not going to be talking about candidates or anything like that. We're going to be talking about the mechanics and really kind of understanding the process and things like that. And that's one of the areas I have to admit, even working for the city, kind of mystifies me. I know it's a well-oiled machine at times, and it's got a lot of things going on, but I don't know what those gears are and things like that. So I'm really kind of excited to dig into that, really.
Okay. So we've gone into the editorial part a little bit, Rob. I think it's probably good at this point to talk about what else listeners can expect this season. So tell me about the music. Is it going to be changing at all? Are you going to bring
That is a
your...
great question. We reached out to our, we're now referring to them in the background as our house band, the Meringues, and who have kindly rejoined us for season 2. And so they've given us permission to use their song Tell Me Twice for our opening again for season 2, because we workshopped it with a lot of people actually, and no one wanted to change it. And so to their credit for the song, it's just a nice, perfect fit. And it's very punk for a municipal podcast, which I think they probably get a really good kick out of. But thank you so much for the Meringues. It's at themeringues.com, just like the pie, and you can see all of their other work.
Yum.
Yum, indeed.
But there's going to be more music, right?
There's going to be more music.
Okay.
We are going to feature a YGK music track, and that's originally how we found the Meringues. It was through a submission through YGK Music. And so we're going to be featuring a different YGK music submission at the end of every show. It's going to be a little bit of a snippet, but just enough to whet your appetite that you want to go back to that site and listen to a lot of this great music. We have such a good local talent in Kingston, and so many of these every year. I'm so impressed by the tracks, and some of them I have to admit get a little bit weird, and I absolutely love it. And it's a delight. So we're going to feature one on the end of every one of those episodes. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to try to tell you what's happening more in the city for the month to come. And so we're going to kind of look into our crystal ball. We have a lot of the calendars, we have a lot of the access to a wide range of events, public engagements, things like that you can expect for the upcoming month. And so maybe we'll do a little bit of a break in the middle and feature something like that. And then finally, I think we should practice what we preach. And so we want to engage with our listeners this season. We want to hear from you. We want to bring you into the conversation at any point in time. You can email us at podcast@cityofkingston.ca, and all of our details, all of our social media and everything is on the end of the show. However, we're going to engage with you directly. We're going to create an engagement on our public engagement site. Everything we refer to and talk about through this whole first season about public engagement, we want to do it for the podcast. Make sure that we are hitting the marks we need to hit, that you are hearing the content that you want to hear, and to really develop and make this podcast even better than what it is. And to be honest, Julielee, can I be really candid with you for 1 second?
Lay it on me. Be really, really candid.
I'm really excited about what we have in store.
You know what? I am too. Honestly, I am very excited. I think in the first season, we were like, go for it. Let's try it. Yeah. And, midway to 3/4 of the way through, we found our stride. And I'm just so excited for what's in store. I
agree. It's going to be a great season. In the meantime, all you amazing, wonderful, amazing listeners, please continue to tell your friends, family, coworkers, medical professionals, anyone about our podcast. We really appreciate it. Heck, we have a whole season catalog that can vouch for us. So until February, this is the gang from Tell Me More. Looking forward to season 2.
Woohoo!
Remember to subscribe and rate us wherever you get your podcasts. If you have a topic for a future episode, tell us more. Tweet at City of Kingston #TellMeMore, or send us an email at tellmemore@cityofkingston.ca. For more on this episode, visit cityofkingston.ca/podcasts. Tell Me More is produced by the City of Kingston's Communications and Customer Experience team.
We've talked a lot about public engagement this episode, so why not find out what it's all about? Get Involved Kingston is your online platform for all City of Kingston public engagements, from surveys to focus groups to public meetings. Get involved. Go to cityofkingston.ca and click the big purple button square in the middle of the page. You can't miss it.